Thanks for joining CATA's digital consultations. I'm John Reid, the President and CEO of CATAAlliance. And since 1977, CATA has been a lead advocate for innovation. We've put forward recommendations on policies, on legislation, on new initiatives that can advance Canada as an innovation nation. Those recommendations are based on careful research, survey work, and one-on-one consultations with thought leaders across Canada. You'll have seen that we've called this guidance today Moving Canada to its Next Level of Possibility. We fully understand the cost of misdirected policies and the cost of not getting it right. So to help frame or reframe the discussions that we're having across all provinces at the national level, we've put together some thoughts for you to consider. We'd like to start with a 5-minute video from one of our CATA Leadership Council members, also VP of Adobe, Sean Cruz. We believe that Sean has captured the essence of the context, the guidance, and the perspective we need to go forward and help Canada get to that next level of possibility. After Sean makes his comments, I'll come back to add a few more thoughts for your consideration. So, Sean, over to you.
Good afternoon, John. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today about digital adoption. It's a very interesting place we find ourselves here in Canada, and I think we at Adobe have a very unique perspective on the trends and the activities that are happening inside of the marketplace. You know, we're entering a new era. We've moved away from, and if we look back over the last 2 centuries, we've had a number of major changes in industry in our global markets. We had a massive change in the agricultural age. We had enormous growth in the middle of the industrial age. We just spent 30 years going through the information technology age, and now we're entering a new era called the creative age. And the creative age is changing the way that we think about how we engage with people, and it's really being driven by a number of interesting factors. You know, we started 10 years ago thinking about our mobile phones in new ways. We got away from just a cell phone of a brick and started to publish new things. So 10 years ago, we were driven by email on our phones, and we made decisions based on the type of phone, and it had to have email, and it needed a certain set of criteria. A couple of years ago, we were raised with a brand new invention on the iPad, which then morphed our expectations one step further, and we started to be able to do more things than just email with these types of devices. Over the last 2 years, we've seen a significant growth and change in even the way these types of devices are used. And the reality is, I no longer care which device I'm using. What I care about is the content that exists inside of it. And if we consider the change necessary at an executive level to really rethink and transform our business, it has to start with content. Content is not the only issue, but it certainly is the priority. Citizens, our users, employees, business partners, and others, they expect a certain level of engagement that is set by our home and private communications. When I go home and play Xbox and I'm networked with 10 people with my headset and then come back into the office, I drag that expectation with me. And when you think about your digital strategies, digital adoption, the creative age, if you're starting with the web, or if you're starting with traditional thought methodology from an IT standpoint, from an application standpoint, from a traditional system standpoint, you're kind of missing a big part of the opportunity. The opportunity is less about infrastructure, it's less about the type of device, it is all about content. Content is king. It's the context of the content, where people could view it, the convenience they can see it with, how easy it is to use, integrate, and combine back into their day. Citizens don't want to hear that this is the way we do things in government anymore. They have an expectation of being able to pick up any device and interact with you at a moment's notice, complete the transaction, and get away. Every best practice known to Adobe starts with content. It starts with effective creation of content. It starts with embedding security, privacy, and accessibility into your content and being able to extend that across your infrastructure simply and easily without necessarily having to invest and change all of your back-end systems. It used to be that we relied solely on technology at the back end. The reality is technology has the ability to enable digital adoption, enable digital government, expand the way that we communicate with our citizens, employees, and business partners in a way that is beyond the traditional thought process. And it all starts with content. It starts with a strategy that looks at content from inception, extends it entirely through the life cycle to an end point, which really gives us the ability to consider the concept of results-based spending. So in the public sector, we have different sets of challenges than commercial. And if we look at these types of examples in commercial on sites like Nike and banking and other, their experience is extremely rich. You can communicate with your bank in 2 minutes, transfer money all over the world, and be out of there in 90 seconds. It's interesting, the question you just asked me is, what's our call to action? What's my recommendation? I've traveled all across the country, met with all levels of government, federal, provincial, municipal, law enforcement, crown corporations, healthcare, and other. My call to action to you is to rethink the amount of investment and time you're putting into your content strategy. Start to grab and consume the idea of mobilized content as the priority. And every strategy that you deploy needs to start with, how are we driving and engaging and creating rich content? Because if you can't embed that as part of your core citizen engagement strategy, you're missing the point of what's happening in the industry. And it would be my thought that not only will you lose pace, but you will lose it at such a rate that you will find yourselves in 2 years down the road not being able to recover. So take a step back, regardless of what you're being told from the different parts of your business, and look at your content and rethink that entire strategy.
As underlined in that video, in many respects, we're missing the mark in terms of our public policy guidance. In fact, I think it was 1992 when we last reworked the framework policies affecting the sector. So it's time that we got up to date. What we've been hearing from our consultation discussions with thought leaders is that the real issue is our nation's ability and interest in building and growing businesses with content and innovations that feed off some of these new transformational technologies. That's what drives the economy forward. But I'd also add, in the context of the Industry Canada Consultations, that the sector's need right now is for funding and programs that help viable firms expand into the marketplace, expand across Canada, and expand globally. I've asked my team to provide our research, to meet with officials, in order that we can work together to move Canada to its next level of possibility. Thank you for listening.